We are back at alumni-owned Sports Page Lounge, part of Old Herald Brewery and Distillery here in Collinsville. Joe Pott with another SIUE Fall Sports Preview, and I'm happy to be joined by the head women's soccer coach, Derek Burton, and this is season number 17, I guess the dean of SIUE coaches at this point.
I'll take that, I guess. 17 is right. That's right.
Let's start right there, because you're not going to stay 17 years in a place if it's not a place that, A, you feel comfortable, feel like is doing the right things, but also where you feel like you have the ability to have some success.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been fortunate, obviously, to be a part of a real growth process for a long time, longer than most coaches get an opportunity to. So I'm super grateful for that, for me and my family. So the city of Edwardsville and the university itself obviously have become a huge part of my, at the time, young family, now growing family. And so super fortunate.
And you have made SIUE into far more than a player in the OVC, quite honestly, a power in the OVC. Coming into last year, 3 straight OVC tournaments, championships, NCAA appearances, 5 total in your time here. You fall last year in a tightly contested OVC tournament game. How much I have to imagine you and your team wanted to be back on the field the next day.
Absolutely, yeah. It was heartbreaking. And yeah, I think that fueled a lot of our off season. It fuels a lot of us during the early part of our preseason, a preseason game under our belt. And we had to kind of talk the team down after a tie yesterday, because they felt they wanted so much more out of it. But a preseason game is just that. It's for growing opportunities, for learning opportunities. And so the fuel is there, I think. The motivation is there for this season. And from a coaching perspective, you're happy to have that.
You play a good Missouri Valley team in Evansville in the preseason game, as you mentioned. Do things a little different, 3 30-minute periods. What does that allow you and your staff to do as you're trying to prep this team?
Just to make some adjustments, 5, 6 new players if you count someone who missed the season last year. So being able to work people in, figure out what combinations we want in certain areas of the field. Some of our younger players, get them a chance to just kind of break the seal, if you will, and get their feet wet to knock off some of maybe the stress, anxiety of playing the first games at the college level. So that was what that was. And really we had some simple goals that we wanted to try to fulfill in the game, to see the things that we've been working on. And when you play in opposition, it's absolutely different than scrimmaging your own team. And that's another reminder we had to give the team after the game, to say, now we have footage on video, we have stuff to go back and look at that's different than our own training, our own scrimmages. So we just go from there.
That's a big deal, right? Because you and your staff can talk to you blue in the face about what you should do, what might happen, what you're doing. When you see that against an opponent, and your players are then able to see, oh, that's what coach was talking about when I don't make that run, or when I don't, stay home on defense. Like, it's a big deal to see that on film for them, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. And everyone, players learn a little bit different. Everyone learns a little bit differently. So it's one thing to hear it. It's another thing to say it, or to see it. And then it's another thing to then go out on the field after seeing it and hearing it, then hear it again. But while you're active, actively doing the things that we're talking about. So we try to hit all those components, to accelerate the uptake of knowledge, and then you apply it. You get to the point, hopefully, where then it becomes second nature, and you're not thinking about playing, you're just playing.
We're with the Cougars head women's soccer coach, Derek Burton. We're at the Sports Page Lounge, the alumni-owned Sports Page Lounge here in Collinsville, with this fall sports preview. And Coach, your roster, as you mentioned, you'll have some changes, but you have some strong veterans returning that have spent a lot of time in this program too.
We do, yeah. And back to the motivation piece, the majority of our upperclassmen prior to last season knew nothing but winning a championship and going home with a trophy at one point in the season. And so thankfully we have that. We have that experience. Like you said, the motivation from coming up short last year. But yeah, up the middle of the field for us, center back, our entire what should be our starting midfield are all seniors. We have the returning 2-time defender of the year in the conference, captain leading the way in a lot of ways. So a lot of experience returning, and obviously that's a real positive for us moving forward.
And again, in this day and age, it doesn't matter what sport we're talking about. There's so much movement, fluidity. If things aren't going well, I think the first instinct often is I'm going to try somewhere else. When you look at a roster like yours that has such a veteran presence, I think that says something about the program and the university itself, but that's something that you can lean on as a coach.
Sure, absolutely. It helps in the recruiting process.
Sure.
Because like you mentioned, with the movement of players in all kinds of sports, that's one of the things now as a coach we get asked quite often. And so it's nice to be able to fall back on that. But to your point, I think we've found some success building and developing players. And so we have a real track record of that. And we mentioned that in the recruiting process, but also with our current players. Maybe a player is struggling with how much they're getting on the field, how much time they're getting. We have a track record of developing players, and when people are intentional with the way that they invest in our process, there's end results. And we have a lot of examples to be able to pull up of people who are no longer with us, or sometimes, in some cases, people who are on the current team that maybe were in their position, playing time wise and positional wise, early on in their career with us. So definitely, that's a strength of ours, I think.
Let's talk about your schedule a little bit. Obviously, I think a game that's probably highlighted on the schedule is the game against St. Louis, which for the second year in a row now will be at City Park, and one of the premier MLS stadiums in the country. That's a lot of fun, but I know that you want that result to be the other way this year.
Sure, yeah. I mean, SIUE is obviously a fantastic opponent, and highly regarded. It's going to be a tough ask this year. They return almost their entire starting team of a team that went really deep in the NCAA tournament. But we also have what we talk about, the experience and the motivation to definitely show ourselves and put our best foot forward for sure. So, and to your point, the occasion it was a lot of fun last year, and it's something that everyone is looking forward to. So not just playing the occasion, playing the game, having the mentality of playing a more complete game is obviously something that we'll get to. But we're in the early stages. We have 6 more games before we even get to that, so we have a lot to do between now and then. So although it's circled and it's obviously something everyone is looking forward to, it's not the main focus right now, or it shouldn't be at least, and we're trying to make sure the next day is our main focus.
And like most programs, and like any other year for you, that non-conference schedule is intentional to prepare you for the Ohio Valley Conference.
Right, sure. We start off with the regular season, at least, with Omaha, who kind of like us has been a very good mid-major program. Prior to last season, had been in the NCAA tournament 2 or 3 years in a row. Missouri State, who was there last year in the NCAA tournament, and then some return games against some other non-conference opponents that we played for the first time last year. So it's always a little bit of a new challenge when you're going to play what is still a fairly new opponent for the first time at their place. But it's also fun to get to our athletes to be able to experience that. So all of those things combined, I think the idea is get us ready for conference play. We know that every OVC game is going to be a battle. It usually comes down literally to the last day of games to figure out who's where. And so the non-conference schedule, hopefully the idea is get us prepared for that.
And it's even as tight as, I mean, you said the last weekend of games, it's as tight as maybe going to goal differential or head-to-head competition, whatever those tiebreakers are. I imagine you can't impress enough that a little mistake along the way can change the outcome of a game.
Yeah, absolutely. That bit us a couple times, I think, last year. There's a few games in OVC play that we walked off the field 0-0, thinking, how do we not win that game? And it goes back to, just putting the ball in the back of the net. So we know we have the ability to get right there. It's just the finished product we lacked a little bit last year. Spent a lot of time in the offseason, spending a lot of time this preseason on improving in that aspect in the attacking third, and that's the goal, to get to where we feel confident in front of goal. We know that we can put the ball in the back of the net, and once we're doing that, I think a lot will follow.
Do you feel like that is maybe that's focus number one? You return a lot of scoring, but this was not necessarily a high scoring team last year.
Yep. Yeah, we have some pieces that really, and they know it's what we spent like all our spring games or spring training, focusing on their individual development and how that fits in to our team principles and our attacking principles to really give them confidence. By and large, all the players we relied on last year, for the most part, in the attack were all freshmen and some sophomore. So continuing to build them, develop them, like I mentioned, and add to their confidence so when they step on the field, they're ready and feeling good. They can finish a game for us.
Cougars head women's soccer coach Derek Burton, as we tape this, you've got one more exhibition game. The regular season is around the corner, and I appreciate you taking some time today.
Thanks so much.
Another fall sports preview here at the alumni-owned Sports Page Lounge. We're in Collinsville, part of the Old Herald Brewery and Distillery. I'm Joe Pott.